I have completed my test page. I've tested my colors, I've tested my graphite pencils, I've learned how to mix some different colors of black, so I think I'm ready now to go on from our first exercise, testing our tools and our palette. I've done two little diagrams here of different kinds of, this is actually not a moon, it's a sun. It was a sun in the afternoon in September we have a lot of firestorms, and this is actually not the moon, it's the sun. This is the moon out my back window, or off my front porch. So I've tried doing a little illustration now, and I've tried all the different tools that I have and my colors, and I'm ready to go to the next exercise, which is going to be a phonology wheel. And that's not phrenology, that'd be a whole different thing. That would be mapping your head, which might not be a bad idea in my case, but I'm gonna map time and space. So phonology is the study of cyclical and seasonal natural phenomena, especially in relationship to climate and plant and animal life. So it's simply a recorded journal of what's happening in the world where you live over time. So you could have recorded data for a full year and put it on this. So this is a different kind of a map. It's a different kind of a calendar. It's a wheel of time, perhaps day by day over the course of a month, or month by month over the course of a year, or even hour by hour over the course of a day. So mine, you can have phonology maps of a number of different things. You could take a bird that you saw in January and record how many there were, and then maybe down in June do that again, or the plants that are growing in your backyard today and tomorrow and all the way through the year, or different types of weather patterns. There's so much that you could do with a phonology wheel. You could do sunrise and sunsets, over the course of a day where the sun is, over the course of a month where the stars are, on and on and on. But for me, I want to do the types of moons. This specifically will be a full moon calendar for 2021. And the reason I'm doing that is because I was fascinated by the names of them, different moons. And in fact, there was a moon on Monday, April 26th. The moon will be a pink moon. And I think that's so interesting. So I started looking up all the different kinds of moons, and there are some pretty amazing names for moons and reasons why they were named that. So I will first get the parts that are going to be background areas sort of blocked in, and then I want to put an owl in the center of mine. I want to put in the actual days of the full moons each month all the way around. I'd like to put all the phases of the moon down below here to remind me, because I had sort of forgotten. I also looked up on the almanac where the moon is over my head in North Bend, Washington over the course of April. So I have all that I'm going to put around the edges. And then I'm going to do an illustration of the pink moon, which actually, as it turns out, it's not really a pink moon, despite its name. It was named because of the flowers that normally grow during this particular moon in April, late April. And they are the pink floss, or the phlox, the moss phlox. They're very beautiful little pink flowers. So I probably will put some of those in here. But this is an actual photo of a pink moon. And then I want to put in Europa, Jupiter's moon, because it's made up of such a network of ice that it actually glows. And so that, I think, will go there. And then I have a couple pictures I took of a lunar eclipse. I think it was maybe 2 years ago. So I think I'm probably going to do very dark, mix one of the blacks that we played with. I'll probably put that in the background and then figure out how to paint the lunar eclipse. And then some type. Anyway, that's a lot for one page. And I'm just going to get started here and work for a little while till it's too wet to do anything. So. I think I'll paint one of the outer rings first. I would like this very outer one to be sort of parchment because that's going to have tick marks for each day and then the phases where the moon is at that time. So I'm going to get a little bit of a creamy color here. Okay, as you can see, I've completely re-wet the area and reactivated it, and I'm actually going to paint the moons now, and then I've worked out a way to stencil off the outer ring so that I can splatter some stars in. So what I've done, I've just wet the moons and I'm letting the edges that were uneven anyway kind of travel in. And then I'm going to go back and drop a particular color into each, beyond just the bluish shadowy tones you see here, to sort of tie into the name wherever possible. I've finished the page now of our nocturnal notes and observations. I did my phonology wheel on the different names of the full moons for each month throughout the whole season in the year of 2021. I created a little chart of all the different moon phases and also what, on each day, what phase of the moon will be in April. I looked up and found out about the pink moon that happens this evening. It's actually one of 2 supermoons this year. And a supermoon's real name, the technical name for it, is perigee syzygy. A syzygy is any time 3 things are lined up, moon, sun, and a planet. So that happens, and then the moon appears 14% larger. So I will go check that out this evening. But pink moon is kind of a misnomer in that it's not pink. It's just a bigger moon and more golden. But it was named for a type of flower that was prolific at this time of year, the phlox, probably more in the northeast part of the United States. But so that's this super moon. And then Europa, Jupiter's moon, it turns out by some tests in labs recently that it probably glows in the dark. And so it's not so dark on the dark side of Europa. I also looked at what a lunar eclipse is and made note of that. And so my page is complete. I learned some things about this particular sketchbook in that it's not really happy to have frisket on it. The frisket pulls up the paper, the surface of the paper, as does anything you mask with. So any tape I put on there lifted it, so I had to glue some areas. I have a little trapped space down here that doesn't make me happy. I don't typically like to trap space like that, so I'll probably put one or two little pink flocks down here to bounce off of the pink up in this corner and relate to the description up here of what a pink moon is. I learned some really interesting names for some of the different moons each month. So lots of names for the same moon. At any rate, this page is complete, and I'm so excited about what I've learned. I just have to do another page. So I've sort of laid it out a little bit here. I'm going to be doing stars overhead. So I'll have a map of the stars here, and I will put in each of these little squares different celestial phenomenon. I'm going to do something about the aurora borealis, probably up in the top, and then something about meteor showers, of which we just had a big one in this area. And then there's something called a steve. It's the green light that happens in the lights in the southern hemisphere. And of course, I want my little nocturnal animal, my little raccoon, to be looking up into the stars. Typically, you wouldn't want him looking off the page, but I've got him far enough into the center that I think it'll be all right, and it'll be apparent that he's looking up. So that's what my plan is here. And I think that the way to start would be to get the dark area here. So I want to mix black again. So let's revisit color, because that's what we're talking about this time as far as an art element goes. But color in respect to the night, and black and dark and shadowy and grays, and how you might mix them. And when I was messing with these different combinations of colors, the blue, red, and yellow, I really like that particular dark, and so I think I'll mix some of that again. Make sure I get my whole circle covered, and minus the area where my raccoon is going to be. This is going to be where my star chart is, so I want to have just a flat coverage, of an interesting background color. The stars are going to go on top of it. Probably going to have a lot more pigment before it's dark enough to draw the star map on. And I would use frisket around the outside edge, but I've already found out that that doesn't play well. I put down some very watery washes and simulated the northern lights. This will have a comet running through it. or a meteor. This is the strange green vertical lines that happen within this particular type of aurora borealis, only it's the southern hemisphere. And I will describe that better and pinpoint what it is that's causing that. And my background is ready to put the star chart in. But I did want, before I went very much further, just to do a couple little things here. Some of the stars will sometimes get a little too bright, and sometimes they just need to be blurred out a little on the edges. So I'm going to do a couple like that so you can see what I'm talking about. So in here, like that, those are pretty big. And actually there's some in the image I was looking at that were sort of like that. But that's bright. So what I'm going to do is take some water on my brush and just kind of softly blend the edges out a little bit. They look a little more believable then. And you can do that while they're wet, but also afterwards. So that'll help them. And then my masking was a low tack tape, and it's, you know, didn't do a great job of masking. So I'll probably either soften those somehow or do a big thick border. I'm not quite sure what I'll do, but maybe there'll be vignettes, but I'll work that out as I get to it. And the other thing I wanted to show you was just an interesting attempt at meteors with this particular brush pen. You can probably find any white brush pen would do this, but once you've got the ink to get down into the brush, it's about to come out like that. Okay, so now there's some on there, but I'm wiping some of it off because I've accidentally gotten too much in the past. So I'll put it down in a pretty good glop, and then you can just kind of whoosh it off like that. And in the picture I'm looking at, there's a number of these kind of radiating up to a similar spot, but from different points. So touch and then just lift and pull. Touch, lift and pull. Well, this time it's not going. There we go. You can get a fairly thin line. There's not a lot of control here, but hey, they're meteors. Who controls them? So they have tails, and you know, that kind of looks like a meteor. That's a lot this time. So let's see, this will be my great big huge meteor. Touch and slide it right on out. And you know, I could dab at that and pull some of it up, but well, I've just about come to the end of my night watch. I completed my starscape on a little star chart and wrote down the different planets and when they were visible on April 24th, Saturday, which is when I looked this up. I did a little illustration of aurora borealis and of the Lyrid meteors, this two phenomenon that were interesting to me, and one of which happened very recently and continues to happen throughout the month. I looked them up and I wrote about them. I did a little discovery of this phenomenon called Steve for short. It's a nickname for a very long named phenomenon called strong thermal emission velocity enhancement. I like Steve better. It's an interesting green light that emits. It's a very long and complicated reason for that, but it happens down in the southern regions. And they're not exactly sure what causes the green, and particularly these little feet that come off in the bottom of this thing they call the picket fence. So that was fascinating to me. I swatched my color that I had tested or retested from when we were doing the color checks. And I'm just down to the last little bit. I'm going to do a pencil sketch of my little raccoon friend. And that part will complete this page. The only things I might point out are some of the compositional things. I know that that's not our focus this week, but in my page design, I went with a very strong diagonal line as my compositional focus, but without leading you off the page. Hopefully it kind of brings you back around. When your eye travels, the raccoon is also on a diagonal. I had another little trap space here that I didn't like, so I put that little inset in there, which it needed anyway. I had some difficulties with my masking techniques. The first 2 pages, I actually lost pieces of the paper and had to glue them back down. So this time I used a less tacky type of masking tape, which let the paint just seep right under it. So my borders are a little wonky. And for me, actually, it's fine. It looks hand-drawn and adds a little charm. I'm going with that. Otherwise, I'll stress too much over the fact that it's got imperfections. I played a little bit with type. We'll talk more about type next week, so I won't go into it in great depth, but it's fun to have a little bit of a different typeface on a headline sometimes. So with that, I know I'm not done exploring the night sky. There's just so much to learn, and I probably will continue to do that. But I also, in the process, came up with a lot of other photos of sky, and so it doesn't have to be about night sky. I certainly have my fair share of rainbow pictures, given my location here. I get some pretty excellent shots of the rainbows. I have a lot of shots from the New Mexico Hot Air Balloon Festival and other places that I've visited where the sky was just amazing. So I may just do a whole page of skies, stormy skies, really brilliant cloudy skies, or skies like that we had last night in the wake of the full moon, the pink moon. So I hope that this has inspired you to go out and look up. Things are looking up. Thank you.